What is going on, guys? It's your boy Smug with the greatest of peas. That's another lie. It's me again. And we covered 5 beginner tips in the last video. I promised you guys 5 advanced tips, and it's time to go over them because Kombat League is panning along, and a lot of you guys got some catching up to do. So I've got them queued up on my monitor here. We're going to tear through them, and then if you feel like testing me on it, come try me on stream. I'm streaming every night this week, 6 p.m. to 11 Eastern Standard Time, and our Golden Fight League tournaments are returning. You can check the link in the description below for where you can register for those. Join the Discord to get updates on them. Aside from that, that's my advertising time. Let's move on. So tip number 1 is very simple. It's going to be jailing your opponent. Now, a lot of players are either not aware that jails exist in the game or have an idea of the concept but are nervous about trying to understand frame data to figure out what jails and what doesn't jail, and I'm here to try to solve that problem for you. It's a lot simpler than you may think. So I've got here in practice mode queued up Nightwolf and Spawn, and you'll see Nightwolf is set to just do a 1-1 string at about the amount of time it would take me to down 1 him and then hit him. You'll notice in this scenario that even though Nightwolf is pressing buttons, you'll see if I hit him and stop, he is trying to punish me. Why, when I continue the string, we're not seeing that at all? And that is because in this situation, I have jailed Nightwolf into a position where if he does anything other than block, he will get hit. Now, the way that jailing works is very simple. Let's look at the frame data. Bear with me. It's not as scary as you think. When we hit Spawn with our down 1, you'll see that our hit advantage is 10 frames and our standing 1 startup is 7 frames. And the easiest way you can tell if a move jails into another move is as simple as, is your hit advantage larger than the startup for your next move? Right? So if hitting a down 1 gives us 10 frames of hit advantage and doing a standing 1 has 7 frames of startup, and that's less than the hit advantage that we have, we can jail from one move into the other. Now, the larger the gap between the two, the easier it will be to jail the move. For example, let's say we had a move that gave us 13 frames of hit advantage, and we had a forward 3 that was 9 frames. Well, you'd have 5 frames to execute that jail on the opponent. These are advantageous positions to be in because you put the pressure on your opponent and you take pressure off of you. You also give yourself the ability to continue your offense while keeping it safe, which is a great benefit. You know, if you're ever playing in a match and you're worried about, oh, I want to make this next move, but I don't want to leave myself open. Well, in a jail, there is no risk and there is only reward. I hit a down 1, so my opponent is forced to block this. And if, you know, by chance they happen to not be aware that they're forced to block and they refuse to, well, you get full combo punish. Doubly so if you happen to have a string that's fast enough to jail and also leads into crushing blow. There might be some examples like that with Cetrion. I'm not 100% aware. I might be wrong on that, but it's worth checking into this stuff. So all you need is hit advantage frames that are larger than your startup frames. And you'll see here, if we hit Spawn and he's not respecting me, well, guess what I get? I get full Nightwolf combo. So I hope he has meter to break. I hope he has meter to break away when I do the combo. You know, because I don't drop them every time I record a video. He can eat something as big as that for just simply not understanding the position that he's in. Characters jail off of different moves. I believe Baraka can jail off of his down 3. Jackie can jail off of her down 1 because she's so fast, and I'll bring her up every Mortal Kombat video I ever make. So check your moves, see what your hit advantage is, compare it to the startup of your moves, and if time allows it, jail your opponents and get some free hits. Tip 2 is actually the one that I've been the most excited to talk about in this video because I've been working on some more character guides, and of course when I want to provide a character guide I have to learn fully in depth how to play the character. And while practicing some Kung Lao, I noticed that he gets a big benefit off of anti-airing in a specific manner, which reminded me that a lot of beginner players aren't even aware of the difference between anti-airing. Now, if you haven't seen my beginner tips video, there should be an info card up at the top of the video you can check out. Reference back to that if a lot of this advice seems a bit complicated for you, a little complex, or if you'd like a refresher on some of the stuff you might be forgetting that you might be losing matches for in Kombat League. That video will be there. In that video, one of the tips was to try to learn anti-airs outside of just doing down 2. What I see most beginner players do in an answer to jumps, if they answer jump-ins at all, is just to simply down to the opponent for jumping. Now, while this works great, and I'd rather you do something as an anti-air instead of nothing as an anti-air, it's not the best option. And that video was basically covering the idea that you can get a lot more damage for anti-airs by learning combos for your character that will optimize your anti-air damage and make your opponent triple guess about wanting to jump in on you. But there's a third layer to anti-airing that works amazing for players who are unaware of it, and it's actually anti-airing in a specific way where you punish your opponent grounded, right? And I like to use Kung Lao as an example for this because he has an advancing string that crushing blows on counter hit that we can force as an anti-air punish and still get the crushing blow depending on how we punish our opponent. So you'll see here, we have our standard down 2. We could also do down 1 into whatever it is. Just standing 2 into whatever it is Kung Lao players like to do. But we can take a step back, you see here, and our forward 2 is now not only countering Scarlet, so we're getting a punish off of her jump in, but we're also getting a counter, which means a string like this that happens to crushing blow now becomes a viable combo starter and anti-air punish depending on the range that we use it at. And of course, if we use forward 2, this is still a counter, but this isn't a grounded counter. As you see, hitting her in the air here isn't going to work to the same effect. We're going to miss that opportunity to get a crushing blow out of this. But if we wait, we get her grounded, and now we can lead into very big damage for Kung Lao, actually. And that leads into more Z-hat pressure, so we just changed a 14 damage counter into... I don't know what a Kung Lao would do for anti-air. Into whatever that would be, you know. Into a full 40% crushing blow counter anti-air. Because we just manipulated range on our opponent and punished them grounded. And a lot of characters can do this. Characters that have far range extending normals, like Kodo's forward 2, Kung Lao's forward 2, Shang's forward 2, Liu Kang's forward 4, Jackie's forward 3. Moves that are quick enough to get into punish in time, but move them forward enough to keep them out of the range of getting hit, but move them into punish can lead to full combos. And you might want to take advantage of that. You'd be surprised how much damage you can get out of it. Take it to the lab, try it out. Tip number 3 is a fairly simple one that can almost kind of walk the line between being a beginner or advanced player tip, all depending on how well the player is aware of using it as a tool. Staggering your opponent. And what I mean by staggering your opponent is you can introduce kind of a pseudo mix-up by varying your timing on your offense. Now, the reason I like to use Baraka as an example for this is that I started the game as a Baraka main, and I of course switched to Jackie later on, but I played Baraka in the beta and then, you know, brought him into the game and then tried the roster out. One of the issues I see when players ask me how to play Baraka and they ask me what variation I use, I always am a big advocate for Marauder. I love the damage. It's how I was introduced to the game. I find it a very strong variation. I feel like people sleep on it a little bit, but it just does immense amounts of damage. But what it does in damage, it lacks in Baraka's natural ability to confuse your opponent with varying offense. That relies solely on the player conditioning their opponent, coming up with habitual tactics, and one of those that you're going to make great use of is staggers. Because you don't have, you'll see Baraka has like a back 3, and you can do back 3-2 overhead, or you can go for back 3-1 overhead, so back 3-1-2, or back 3-1 and then try to get a grab in there, or back 3-1 and then something as simple as 1-1, which would specifically be a stagger, right? Mix-ups, again, as I try to advocate this all the time, don't always have to be the difference between low and overhead. And in this case, it can just be, am I going to finish my string or not finish my string? People love first round KO Jackie because of her ability to string cancel. And one thing people tend to forget is that every character kind of has access to that kind of practice, to that gimmick. First round KO just has the best access to it. But you can do 1-1 into 1-1 into 1-1 into 1-1 all the time. And they're safe on block. I believe the first hit's -3. The second hit is -2 on that string. We can double check real quick. I'll set the AI to block all of my moves and we'll turn frame data back on. So see, if we stop at 1, we're -3. If we stop at 2, we're -2. So we're nowhere near punishable. We're basically stopping at neutral if we stop on either one of these first 2 hits. You're actually really plus off of a 1-1-2, but you push them back so far, you lose the ability to stay in their face with pressure. What this does for your opponent is makes them have to deal with the gimmick of, is he going to hit me once? Is he going to hit me twice? Is he going to go for the full 3? Is he going to hit me once and go for a grab? Is he going to hit me twice and then go for a grab? Is he going to hit me twice and then hit me twice and then go for a grab? Is he going to hit me twice and then hit me once and then hit me twice? They have to constantly try to guess where the pause in the offense is. And every time they guess incorrectly, they get opened up to a full combo. Of course, for Baraka, one of his best combo starters is going to be that 1-1-2, because it leads into his back forward 4, which leads into crushing blow if you know how to confirm it. You'll see here we can throw the opponent up, do something like this, and get big crushing blow damage, doubly so if we have the flag out. But trying to open an opponent up with 1-1-2 isn't always going to work that well, or even 1-2-2 to force them into crushing blow if you're trying to reach for counter hit. So staggering and having them guess incorrectly on where the pause is in your offense opens them up in a way that Baraka wouldn't normally have access to. And a lot of players that I try to introduce to Marauder Baraka, because I want to see more of them out in the world, play him for a week and then drop him because they simply don't know how to open up their opponent. You know, I'm trying to get these combo starters, and I like them, and I like doing the combos, and I like the damage, but I can't get my opponent to stop blocking. Staggers solve that problem. Tip number 4, I don't see get talked about a lot, even with advanced play. It's just kind of something we're more aware of than something we discuss, but it's the importance of implementing flowcharts into your gameplay. Now, if you're not aware what flowcharts are, they're very simply having a planned out, premeditated sequence of moves, which gives you the ability to continue your offense in situations where your opponent might hesitate because you're overwhelming them with a pre-planned, confusing, concise, compressed, premeditated attack. So, of course, for me, I have a lot of flowcharts for Jackie, so I'm going to give away some of my secrets. You can practice blocking against these if you want. Come to my stream and block when I do them to you. It just forces me to get more creative. But, for example, we'll look at something here, right? So what a lot of upgraded Jackie players will do is something as simple as this, especially when they're new. Get a string like that going. That's her bread and butter loop that you're going for. And then we're stuck in a position here where now I've almost, in a sense, got a life lead, but kind of gave Sonya Blade the advantage. She has projectiles and Ringmaster, which almost all the Sonyas are playing, that she can shoot, that I have to deal with. I can try to jump in at her, but of course if she makes that read, you know, so it takes away the goal of being an upgraded Jackie player, which is staying on top of my opponent. Upgraded is great because it allows you to get in, but you still have the same goal of wanting to be as close to you as possible the entire time. And I've now created a gap. And what are which for me has now limited my options. I can either jump in, or from that distance I can go for a bionic punch, which of course is a high, gets red, and I get punished for. I have a planned sequence of attack after something like this. So I'll do this string, and then let's say like I know I'm gonna dash in and do back 2-2. The opponent doesn't know I'm gonna dash in and do back 2-2. The opponent faces a lot of Jackies that are gonna try to close the gap with something like this. Right, so they're either neutral ducking, or they're basically just waiting to see what you do next, and I already know what I'm going to do next. And the fact that they don't know means that they have to hesitate, take a second to think about what they want to do, and with the time that they give me hesitating, I've already moved on to my next planned sequence. One of my favorite flowcharts that I like to use introduces a jail along with a mix-up, along with a pseudo mix-up at the end. So we're now combining some of the tips that we discussed previously in the video to create something like this, and it would help you when trying to come up with your own flowcharts to consider things like this. So, what am I talking about? For example, we can do loop, and if I end in down back 1, her low gunshot, I believe I'm like plus 13, plus 14. We can check the frame data later. I don't want to take too much time from the video now. Which means I am now in an advantageous position. Again, I'm plus, the opponent is forced to jail, which means they're more likely to block my next offensive attempt. What I like to personally do next is do back 3-2 into bionic leap, into ground pound. Why? Because back 3-2-4 is a commonly known Jackie string that gets used because it's a low mid overhead. And even on block, it's safe, it pushes the opponent away. So again, I'm jailing them and not necessarily taking too much of a risk by going for a string that's safe, but then I am by using it as a mix-up for going for a low ground pound. But it's part of my game plan. Of course, your game plan can get interrupted. So we'll do the string, we'll go here, we'll jail, we'll go for a mix-up. If this hits, I will do back one into this. Now, normally, they'll be in the corner by this point, so I'll show you why I like to do that. Because usually this string is working off a full loop. So we go for our mix-up. Then when they're in the corner, my personal flowchart is I like to do this into low ground pound because the visual is confusing. And then after low ground pound, you'll see how quick this grab comes out. So they're usually blocking, waiting for the next thing, and I get that grab. And that, if I do the whole flowchart, I believe takes off almost 90% of the health bar if everything connects. So if I'm successful in that sequence of attacks, it has the potential to do this much damage to my opponent. That's no crushing blows, 2 bars of meter, whatnot. I basically, if I get that setup going, it's going to be very hard for me to lose a round now. Now, it's happened to me before, but it's going to be hard. But my opponent doesn't know I have that whole entire sequence planned up until this point here. And even at this point here, I have more sequences planned for if this goes off the way I want it to help finish off the round. If I get cut off at points, I have second or third options that I like to go for. So you want to come up with layers to your flow chart. Don't just go, I'm going to go for this and hope it doesn't get interrupted. If it does get interrupted, what are you going to do? If they do start blocking, what are you going to do? How are you going to cover yourself? How are you going to make it safe? If your setup requires them to get knocked down, what are you going to do if they roll forward? What are you going to do if they roll back? What are you going to do if they do wake up 3? What are you going to do if they do wake up 2? What are you going to do if they wake up and just block? All of these should be considered when constructing your flow charts, but more importantly, you should have flow charts, especially if they prove to be beneficial for you. So you try them out, come up with them, try them out on opponents, find the ones that work the best, utilize them. For tip number 5 and the final tip for today, we're going to talk about shimmying your opponent. Now, shimmying I consider an advanced skill because it does require a bit of timing and an understanding of ranges that I feel a lot of beginner players don't understand, at least for the wide variety of the roster, to fully start implementing it into the gameplay versus the entire cast. That's what to me makes it an advanced strategy. If you consider it beginner, I'm just going over it, you know, for those who don't know. So what is shimmying? Shimmying is essentially trying to bait your opponent to go for an attack so you can punish them using nothing other than your movement. The way that that works is moves have a dedicated range. So we'll see here, Liu Kang goes for this forward 4 from here. He's not within range to hit me. You see it's whiffing completely. So this is what ideally I want to happen. I want to try to get him to do this to me. You'll see if I step forward though, I walk myself into the range of it. Forward 4 actually goes a little farther than you think. I think I can stand right about here and still get hit by the end of it. So you want to be careful when shimmying because the tightrope you're walking is moving yourself in too close and getting hit. And the reason I like this scenario as an example is because Shang, if he wins this whiff punish, gets a crushing blow. Liu Kang, if Shang messes it up, gets a crushing blow. So we're playing a very dangerous game, shimmying Liu Kang in this situation. But if we're successful, it works into a great position for us. We can establish a life lead. If you're in a bad position, you can try to catch up, you know. It also gets the opponent worried because, again, you're in their head. You're starting to figure out their timing. They get sweaty. They hesitate. Benefits you. So if we shimmy in and out of the range of that forward 4 and our opponent tries to punish us, we can punish our opponent for pressing a button. Liu Kang, once he presses that forward 4, mind you, that you can see in the commands, that forward 4 is one button. He's stuck in that for that whole animation. He has to deal with whatever we do. And if we get a successful shimmy, he's basically at our beck and call for what we want to go for. We can go for something like this crushing blow. We can whiff a move like this and try to punish him. We can decide we don't even want to risk it and go for a special. We can start zoning him because he got baited. We can corpse drop him because he got baited. We can jump over him. We can come in, jump out, and get over it, which is one that I like to use that a lot of people I play don't understand how they feel like I can just jumping two whenever. I usually try to shimmy and then get a jumping two. So you'll see me do that a lot if you check me on a stream, whatever. But these work for us. He fell for it, and now he has to deal with the consequence of getting caught with that. And shimmies will work great online, especially versus newer players who are very, very hesitant and worried. They'll see you come in and step out and not know what to do and panic and press a button. I have a friend of mine who does it to me all the time. I would like to think that I'm at least not free. I'm a decent Mortal Kombat player at worst, and I get caught with shimmies by players who use them effectively against me. You know, we're all human. You're kind of taking advantage of people's psychological habits. If they get impatient and press buttons, well, they fell for your shimmy bait, and you post a clip on Twitter and laugh at them. So, guys, try to take advantage of all of these tips. I will be working tirelessly to get a lot of Mortal Kombat content out to you this week. I'm aiming for 3 videos at the least, 4 videos at the most. I'm also going to be doing some Grand Blue guides, you know, go into some other games. If you guys have characters in other fighting games that you'd like to see, post it in the comments. I have most of those games anyway, and I'll see you guys soon. Play Mortal Kombat.